Welcome back to Wednesday Wisdom Women Fall Edition. This is season 2, and I'm so excited for our guest today. We have Andrea joining us. I'm just getting my questions out, have that ready. And it's just really has been such a thrill. Just to give you the premise, the background, Wednesday Wisdom Women has all about been creating the space for us to reflect on the people that have influenced or positively affected our lives as women in power and doing this kind of work around wellness. Okay, so I see a request. Yay. Okay, we're coming in now. Coming in. I think, I hope, I always never know about how the tech is working. We'll see if this comes in live. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I am doing well.
Oh,
Like
so
just
good.
turning up the volume so I can hear you.
I know, I know. It's like the adjustments. It's like we're coming into place together. It's so great.
I know.
So I haven't seen you. I think it's been, was that 2022 or 2021? It was like,
Yes. Yeah, I was pregnant with my youngest at the time, so I
I know.
know.
I thought you were just like so brave coming there and doing that. I was like, oh, you're amazing. Like, what do you do?
I know, and I'm like I just got off the tennis courts right now, so I was just playing some tennis this morning. So
Oh my gosh. Are you on the pickleball craze? Like everyone's been jumping. Have you done it?
no, so it's like you're either like you're tennis or pickleball, and
Yeah.
so I grew up playing tennis, and so that's my
Yeah.
jam. But I played
Yeah.
pickleball once. It was fun.
Yeah. It's cool. It's definitely, there's a lot of rules, but yeah,
That,
super
that is
fun.
true.
I didn't have to run so much, so that was good. But anyway, yeah. I'm really excited for our talk today, especially because it does incorporate a lot of the stuff about body and connection with our bodies and our body after kids and postpartum and the doula work that you do. So why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah. So I have been in kind of the pre-postpartum space for 17 years now, and it was kind of by accident. And so I started as personal trainer, and one of my very first clients 17 years ago, I trained her for a little bit, and then she said, "Hey, I'm pregnant." I'm like, "Oh." And so then I remember telling my mom, and I was like 22 at the
Uh-huh.
time, and my mom's like, "Do you realize that like there's a baby inside of her? Like, do you know how to train someone like this?" I'm like, I don't know. Great question. And so I dove into like what they had at the time, which was like this little thin little booklet of from like Ace Fitness, and that was all the information for
Mm,
training someone who's pregnant. And so now, for the last 17 years, stuff has been coming out, and
mhm,
there's been so many amazing programs. And so I've studied with some great teachers to kind of even deepen my wisdom there. So that's kind of my jam. And then I added in my Ayurvedic postpartum doula work
mhm,
this last year, and so I postpartum is just my favorite population to work with because I think it's such a precious time. And it's just such a tender time. And so for
mhm,
me, seeing it on the training side, I knew I wanted to kind of touch base with people even sooner than that 6 week window. And that 6 week window in Ayurveda, those first 6 weeks are that golden time. Like those first 42 days set up your life for the next 42 years, according to Ayurveda and
mhm,
Chinese medicine.
mhm,
And so for me, I really wanted to deep dive into that. And then now I get to, go into homes and provide some care from that lens. And so it just all kind of worked perfectly in that realm. And that's primarily what I've completely shifted to is just that pre-postpartum space. Based on my own, experience, and then who has been coming to me for
mhm.
training and for my knowledge. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's like almost sometimes it'll naturally evolve, like what you're called to do and what is it that you're like really feeling that is your service, like in this life. Do you feel that is kind of, I mean, it takes a while to really listen to it, but
Yes, that part for sure. Because I've had it for like, again, 17 years. I've had that focus, and I've always just had a lot of pre-postpartum clients coming to me. And then I was like, no, I think this is like the space that I need to be. And I love talking about people's birth stories and then like talking about postpartum, setting up your postpartum period and all of the
Mm.
things. So,
Oh, I love that you do that because I just feel like I'm thinking about my pregnancies and we were like expats a bit jumping around while that was happening and it was just like it's so isolating at times. I mean, you have information, you have like prenatal type of support, but it's really not like the deeper stuff that perhaps can be just bringing up. And I never thought about like doulas being there even like the very original days of it. And that's like I never knew that.
Yeah, and Ayurveda differs just a little bit because they focus primarily on the mom. And so my focus is all about mom's healing and nourishing the mom. And so that's a
Mhm.
little bit different than maybe a postpartum doula where they're taking more
Right.
care of the baby and they might spend the night there. Whereas Ayurveda, we strictly are like, massage. So we call it
Mhm.
abhyanga, and that's really grounding for the mom. We focus on food. So a lot of cooking
Mhm.
is done. Some different beverages and herbs are used. And so all of that plays a huge factor in that Ayurvedic postpartum healing.
My gosh, I'm so jealous now. I'm like, I'm done, but I'm like,
I know.
oh, that's so nice. It's like such a hard time. Okay, well, as I was sharing with you, usually we'll start with like a little breath or centering or visualing before we kick off our discussion about women's empowerment and your journey with that. So, do you have something you want to take us through today, or how are you feeling about
Sure.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also a yoga teacher. So yeah, we can get centered. Yeah,
Okay,
so
great.
we'll go ahead and just go ahead and close the eyes if that feels comfortable or find a soft space to kind of gaze at. And then today, just kind of tapping into your energy. If you feel like you need a little more energy, flip the palms up. If you feel like you need a little more grounding, flip the palms down. And then let's just start to become aware of the breath. So just take an inhale in through the nose and just open mouth exhale, sigh it out. And let's take that once more since we're in the middle of the day. Take an inhale in through the nose. Just open mouth exhale. And then let's just start to take an inhale and exhale through the nose. You might do a breath count of 4 on the inhale and exhale for 4 through the nose. Coming into your Samavriti breath, that even, steady breath count. As you continue this breath, seeing if there's any space that needs to soften. Maybe releasing tension through the jaw, relaxing through the shoulders, releasing any tension through the hips, through the fingers or toes, and finding that steady pace. Starting to release any pausing that might be happening between the inhale and exhale. Maybe just envisioning a circle as you inhale and exhale. And then maybe drawing your awareness into the heart space. And if you haven't already, maybe just setting an intention for your day. It could be a thought, a word, a feeling, something that you feel connected to for the rest of your Wednesday. And then releasing that intention. And then gently bowing that chin down towards the chest. And then slowly letting the light come back in the eyes as you open them.
Oh, thank you for
Yeah.
that. I honestly, Andrew, I get worried I'm gonna forget to come back like when my guests do this, and I'm just gonna be like, huh?
Yeah.
Just like,
Yes. You're like, and I'm back.
that was beautiful. I love your your wording through that. Like that was just very like intuitive about the light come back into your eyes instead of like an action of open your eyes type of thing. That was really beautiful. I don't know why. That
Okay.
touched me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, if anyone had an intention too, they'd love to put in the comments. You're welcome to share below. I always feel like you can claim something a little more
Mhm.
personal if you share it. So mine was presence. I've really been trying to just make sure I am everywhere I am in that moment. I'm just there. Just there. But
That
that
was mine as well.
wasn't no way.
I was like, what? Wow, okay.
That's
We have our theme. We
interesting.
have our theme.
We synced up. That's awesome. I love it. Hey, as moms too, I feel like that's just it's a
Oh,
muscle, like presence.
totally.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Well, all right. So I'm gonna just go for it and ask you the first question that I have for here today. So, um, what I usually do is like kind of like open up the floor of like, what is empowerment? You know, like when we see, and I want to ask who some of your role models were, but I'm like flipping it this time. I want to ask the second question first of like, what do you feel are some of the traits around what an empowering woman would have?
mm. Yeah, when you kind of asked that, the first thing that came to me was just someone who knows themselves. I think that is something that for me, that's some work in the world for, I kind of always have this tagline of slow down, tune in, and connect back to your divine body wisdom. And I think if we can connect back to that inner knowing, and it's going to be different for me versus you versus those who are listening, like we all have this deep inner knowing and presence about ourselves. And so figuring out what that is. So just as I had talked about kind of with the Ayurvedic postpartum doula work and just postpartum in general as being a piece of my work, that was me like connecting back in
Mm.
and knowing like that is part of who I am. And I think that really is empowering for people if we could all kind of scrape away some of the layers that we might be hidden, like our true self is hidden under, and then connecting back into that. For me, that's truly empowering.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, like that in a nutshell makes sense because I would think of people like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you know, like these people that just kind of have it. They're like, I am this, this is my role, this is what I do, this is what I do well. But I don't like, what do you feel like? How can you tell in a woman? Uh-oh, did I lose you there? Oh no.
Okay, I'm still here.
Oh
Good.
my gosh.
I was like, my I have a phone setting on mine where it shuts off after a
Oh,
certain
okay.
time. So
Okay,
hopefully you don't lose
perfect.
me. I'm like, hopefully it will let me come back in. So
As long as we have each other, we're here, we're here. It's fine.
yeah.
We'll keep coming back. But the other side of that question I asked was like, how can you see it? Like, how would you be able to tell? Like, can you feel? I'm just curious. Like, this was just something that popped in my head today. Like, how can you see it in a woman or
Mm.
in their behaviors? I don't know.
So I think where we met, like Sarah Jenks,
Yeah,
like to me, like she comes,
yeah.
to mind as just someone who's like just went there. She kind of scraped away layers and like just embodying who she is. So a lot of the people, I feel like that connection and where you just can feel their real rawness and knowing who they are. I've had some mentors. So in the online space, like it's tough because sometimes you don't like really get to know
Mhm.
people. And so when I meet someone and they are truly who they present themselves to be online, like it's just that deep connection where you're like, yes, like that to me is empowering. They have found their true essence. So it's hard to kind of, I feel like it's very intuitive a little bit as
Yeah,
well of like you just kind of have this
yeah.
gut feeling about someone, and I think that to me is like you can feel it when people are in their element and in their essence of like, yeah, there's something about them. This feels right.
Totally. Like I totally agree about that. That authentic kind of energy that they give off where they're pretty consistent with how they behave. And it's like this is just who they are. And then something else just popped in my head. I'm wondering also that this could be a layer. And I think if you went to Sarah Jenks, we might be open to this idea of like sometimes I feel like we are attracted to something that we're meant to be guided by in some ways. What do you think about that?
100%. Like that's where I always like anything where even online I'm like, oh, why am I maybe feeling stuff about this person? I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, what is the mirror? Like what do I need to look at? Or
Mm.
what am I not like doing that this person is? Or like there's usually something there. There's friction there for a reason. And so for me, like that's where I like to to kind of look at those, people and, the spaces and just kind of like, okay, this is a mirror for myself to kind of dive deeper into, whether that be through journaling, meditation,
Wow.
just sitting out in nature. Like my favorite practice to connect into myself is just walking on my favorite nature trail. It's just like a deep dive. I lose cell service at some point. And so you're just like
Yeah.
literally nothing to do but be with yourself. And so for me, that's where I feel like you can just kind of strip away layers and really find yourself.
Oh, I love that, love that, love that, because there can be that space like you were talking about, like if I'm maybe being attracted to somebody's journey and they're what they're doing, and is it that, that's the mirror for what is my potential. And I think a lot of the work that like we do in this is to make sure that doesn't turn into just envy and self-defeated kind of
Yes.
imposter syndrome. Like that's not natural, especially like how women can be, and we have to like work through like this is about me. This is something going on in my head with this right now. It's nothing they're doing. Have you noticed that like that's some work that women, I don't know, that some of the work we do as we go through all of this?
Yeah,
Mhm.
sorry. I my thing went out, but I am back. So it muted you for the end of your statement, but
Oh, okay. No, just I think that basically the thing was saying that like how the work we do is to hear the message
yeah.
and to like of what that person's um energy that's inspiring us, instead of it turning into envy or imposter syndrome, or I don't know, we get a little catty sometimes. It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
no, they must be nice, you have a chef in your house or something like that.
Yeah, and I always am like, where am I at in my menstrual cycle? Because usually that late luteal phase, like that's the time where I have so many friends who also run their own businesses, and they're like, I'm gonna quit it. I'm gonna burn it all down. And I'm like, where are you at in your cycle? And they're like, oh, yep, I'm about to bleed.
Oh my
So I'm like, yep,
gosh.
very common of like those feelings. So I usually try to take a little social media break if I call them like the crunchy days where I start to be like, yeah, I'm starting to be judgy, I'm catty, I'm not synced into me. Like, let me just remove the obstacle, which often it can be social media. And so, like, let me just be off of it for a few days so I can just, again, at that time of the cycle, like during your bleeding phase, that's when you're just the most intuitive and connected. And so, really
Mhm.
taking the time to like scrape away anything that could influence you to come out of like that inner wisdom and that inner power, get rid of it. It's not, it's not, we don't have to like be plugged in 24/7, 365. We can take some time away and tap back into ourselves.
I love it. Permission to do it. I know it's a hard thing sometimes, and I'll tell you, I do not go near a hair salon in my luteal phase. I never. All bad
That too.
decisions has been like PMS at a hair salon.
Like, let's do a drastic change.
I'm gonna
Thanks.
get bangs. I'm gonna get bangs, I swear.
Awesome.
Anyway. Okay. All right. So on to my next question I have. So I'd love to hear more about like your story with empowered women. I always like to interject about how it can be a woman that we also decided to do the opposite. Like
Mhm.
I had a boss that was just like, I will never be like that. Like that was the role model for me in that ways. But tell me about your empowerment role models.
Mm. Yeah, I was trying to like, I'm like, who comes to mind? And really, for me, my great grandma Clara. And she passed away when I was like 4. So I know her through mostly a lot of like anytime people are like connect with their ancestors, she always
Oh,
comes through, always, always,
oh.
always. And uh her life is very interesting because I've asked my grandma, who is still alive, and she's 98, and she's also one of my empowered women as well. And um she was 89 when she passed, my great grandma, and she only had 2 kids, and this was in the early like 1900s, and so, which is very rare. And so for her, that was kind of her rebelling against the system, because she had a Cinderella-ish story, but not with the prince necessarily at the end, because her dad remarried because her mom died when she was young, and then she already had 2 brothers, so then they had 4 children, so then she was the oldest, and so she took care of 6 kids, had to clean, had to cook, did all of the housework. And so she just couldn't wait to get out of there. And this is all from my grandma telling me this. And so for her, she was like, no, I'm not going to do that again. Like, I'm going to take care of me. I want some time for me, which again, in the early 1900s, that's very unheard of.
Right.
She also fought for the women's right to vote. Like, she was out
Okay.
there on the front line. And so I'm like, wow. So for me, and this makes perfect sense why anytime I've done this ancestor work, she comes through. And I have very few memories about her, but at her funeral, my aunt had said, she's like, you were just like, what's wrong, with great grandma? And they're all like, oh, she's just sleeping. And I was like, okay, but we can't leave her in the cold. And so like that whole thing. So I clearly, had that connection
Yeah.
with her. And so like she just comes to me anytime I'm like, okay, who do I need to hear from, or any guides, ancestors, like she is there. And I did a really cool meditation with Sarah Jenks years and years ago now. She did this very small retreat. There was like 10 of us there, and
Uh-huh.
it was the Wise Woman of Winter. And we took us through this. This was my first real work in connecting with ancestors. And my great grandmother came through. And then in it, they said, see if they give you a gift. And in it, she gave me this like purple amethyst necklace.
Mhm.
And so I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I wonder if I could find one. And so, like, after the retreat was over, I was staying for an extra day. I drove to
Yeah.
Salem, went to this really cool shop, and I was like, okay, if it's meant to be, I'll find this necklace. And so I'm looking through the shop and I'm not seeing any necklaces. So I was like, oh, it's kind
Yeah.
of a bummer. And then
Uh-huh.
this lady moved at the back of the shop, and then right there was one purple amethyst necklace left. And I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, I bought it, and like that is like my real connection. Like every time I wear it, I'm like, I know I'm just gonna be deep journey with it. And so that to me is like super powerful bond, and just feeling her wisdom living within me still. And my grandmother, who's 97, going on 98, like she still lives at home on the farm. And she is just a delight to talk to and get to know her stories. She's tough as nails. She watched me, when my mom was working as a kid. So I went to her house all the
Oh,
time. And just to hear her own journeys, her own stories, like that to me, those are the women who I love to learn from. And I also work with seniors a lot in either chair yoga or fitness classes. And I don't know, I enjoy hearing from the, ladies in their 70s, 80s, and 90s,
hmm
and just them having the space. I'm like, just tell me about your life. And those to me are the women who make an impact. They might not be the people who anyone knows or hears about, but just hearing their lives and their journeys, and just how they survived, just the everyday life and what it looked like. So those would be my people.
I love that. And that's somebody was just sharing today's the day of our ancestors. So this must be like something in the wheel that's very open to that right now. What is today? October 2nd.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So it's like I love that our conversation just naturally went in that direction, because I think this story about the amethyst, and I feel like that is empowering. I think the most empowering thing is when a woman is so owning of her stories that she continues to share it through the lineage. Um, because that's how we continue to grow and like, expand on that, right? We're not starting from 1850, we're starting from here. And where do we take our bloodline further? And oh, so beautiful.
And that's something I like to reflect on. I'm like, wow, we're going to be, because I was born in 84. And so I'm like, we didn't really have cell phones in high school. I'm like, this is going to be interesting, because we're kind of that last
Yeah.
generation when we're in our 80s and 90s that people are going to be like, what was it like before basically the internet? And how was life? And how was it before cell phones? Because they're not necessarily, they won't know that. And
Mm.
so it is interesting just to reflect on of like, wow, where will that be, and where will we be as ancestors? And the stories that we'll tell are going to be different for the people who are grandchildren, or even our kids.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And because it's like kind of our duty. We have this obligation to keep telling the stories of great grandmother Clara, and where, because I think there's just this empowerment that grows out of that. Like, look
Mhm.
where you've come from. Look at this is your, and even if they're not the greats, even if they just survived trauma or something horrible, like that is the story too. And that's where we can, I don't know, just lean into that
Yes.
and call upon them when we're doing our deeper work, and just being like, okay, just I'm tapping in. Like this is I need Clara, what's going on? Like this is something that, is another way to connect with that love and that deeper part of ourselves that's in our DNA.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. Okay, so I'm taking from you today about knowing yourself, that self-awareness, but I love also the lineage storytelling, the connection to our stories and our line of, I always pull out a few tidbits from each of these, and I've been kind of collating them into I don't know what something. Because it's so beautiful, because I know, like, when we connect with women like this and we have discussions, um I love that we do the centering first, because it's almost like, people go out and like, oh, have a glass of wine first and then we can chat deep. It's like, no, we can really, like, we can get there together, like, in this way, and have this conversation, and get to the real cool stuff. All right, so I'm thinking at this point, we should pull a card
Yeah.
and maybe see, especially that we were talking, even though it's the day of the ancestors. And so I brought this deck out today. I was kind of feeling out, like, what does Andrea have? Is it like, I don't know. I was like, do you have any connection with runes, or do you like using them ever, or have you ever used them
I have
before?
never used them. I've always been intrigued. So I like that you have the ruins deck. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's kind of a Scandinavian thing, where they sort of, the origin of them was, but usually it's the stones, and you throw the stones and you'll pull one out. But somebody made this really beautiful, it's called Runes for Modern Life. It's really fun. I picked them up here in New Jersey, and they're by Teresa Chung. So there's some cool kind of pop art in for all of these, and so we'll see. Let's pull one today. I'm going to knock these out, and I'm going to start shuffling them, and I would love for you to just intuitively say when to stop.
Okay. Mm, Stop.
Okay. Okay. Hey, this is Othala, and I'm seeing some ancestor action here, but I'm going to pull it open and see which one this is. I don't think I've ever pulled this one before, so I'm like, what
I
is
love it when
this?
that happens.
I do too, because it's definitely going to be a new. Oh my goodness. Yep. Okay. It is. The pronunciation is Othala. Othala. It's very Viking. The meaning of property or an inheritance. Othala is the 24th and final rune card. It pays tribute to your family heritage.
Oh my
Both the, I,
gosh.
I mean, I'm not surprised. Both the material possessions you have inherited and the attributes and traits that you were born with. So this is for anyone watching this too, like, enjoy this card for today. When this rune card appears in a reading, you're encouraged to think about your ancestors. I'm not shitting you. This is just what came up. And your current family traditions, which influences and beliefs from your past, including your childhood, have shaped your life and
Oh
contributed to the person that
my
you are
gosh.
today. How far do these beliefs chime with your own? Do you feel there's conflict? Do you feel this is growing you? Either way, this card calls you to be true to who you are, and to let go of the beliefs that you don't feel in tune with anymore, and really know what your next level, what truly matters to you, is next. An alternative reading of this rune card is that you should research your family history to discover what the past can teach you from who you are and where you came from. So get out those who do you think you are episodes. So inspired.
Wow.
I think that's so cool.
That is amazing. And yeah, I mean, great grandma Clara is from Norway. So also very Scandinavian. And 24 is like my number. Like that is my basketball number. Like that is my number.
No, no.
So I'm like, okay, wow.
Oh, that's so, I love it. I love it when
She
it
is
does that.
clearly, her presence is clearly here.
I think
That's
so.
amazing.
I think she's 100% here. And I think that that's so, it's all the affirmations. Like when you saw that amethyst necklace too, I'm like, it's not that, like, it's like the magic, like it dragged it through the air and put it was just those reminders that, like, I can connect with this energy. I can connect with those signs that I'm supported, and there's more to be revealed. There's more out there. I don't know. So final words, I would love to hear from you about, so how people can work with you, because I think what you're doing is like a service to mankind. Like it's so important and beautiful, and I loved hearing your origin around, or maybe where some of that came from. So tell us where we can find you going forward.
Yeah. So my website, which is just my name, AndreaClaassen.com, and
Mhm.
has all my offers there. But I do in-person work here in St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota area. And then I also do some online. So if people are listening, because Ayurvedic postpartum doula they're kind of hard to
Yeah.
find. So if you were like, hey, I would love to incorporate some of that, I do online nurturing the new mother consults to
Mm.
help set you up. So if you're like, oh, I would love to do some of these practices, you can get all of that in a consult with me online. I also have some in-person workshops coming up here in the St. Paul, Minneapolis area. So Wild Woman Circles I run each month,
Mm.
where we do kind of like what we're
Yeah.
doing today is we do shares, we do journaling, oracle cards, meditation. And then I also have a workshop, an Ayurvedic workshop in a couple weeks, I think October 12th. And so that's also locally here to ground down the Vata season. So
Is that that's what we're in now? I have so
we are
much
in
to learn.
Vata. We are in Vata season, which is kneading of the grounding, like yin yoga, restorative practices, warm, oily foods, all of that to kind of help offset maybe the scattered, anxious energy that can come at this time of the year.
Oh my gosh, I need so much more. I'm gonna be reaching out. I'm like, I love that. I need more. I am very, very postpartum, but I love
Oh yeah.
leaning into all of this.
Well, I like to talk Ayurveda, and so like I have, Ayurvedic consults that I do
Oh,
too. So
that's so fantastic. Okay, I think that's the next step here. But I am so thankful for you, Andrea. Like this is, I think that was just like such a kismet discussion here, and that was such a beautiful share, and I love the work that you do. So,
thank you so
yeah.
much, Rachel. This is amazing, and oh, I had a really delightful conversation with you. So thank you.
Capital.
I love it.
Okay, awesome. All right, Andrea, we'll see you around then. Thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care. All right, bye-bye.